Actually,
And before we get to 161, I do believe that the transcript, when it is audibly inaudible, it's noted in the transcript. You don't dispute that, correct? Okay, so in terms of the transcript being accurate when something's inaudible and it's noted in the transcript, no objection to that. No concern.
objection to that, but there is one.
But let's start with that. I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing at every moment. No concern about that, right?
There are one or two places where it's inaudible, but you can't hear what they're saying. And
Okay.
we can make those corrections. There's few enough of them that we can do that.
Okay. What your concern is, though, is that you believe you hear something different
Yes.
than what's noted in the transcript, and you believe that that changes the context of that audio conversation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. 161, you said?
Yes, and if you go back to 160, kind of gives you a little bit more context for the conversation, but not much. They're talking about...
What line?
If you go to 161 and you go to line 8, where it says inaudible, very
She says,
few
let's
times.
do this. It's Ms. Lyon. Let's do this again. And we'll get back to where we were because it says the F word, effed up. I effed up. I'm not recognizing it when I should have, and not having 2 dashes because I could have, and then it says inaudible. Very few times, Mike was like, well, if Chad does what he wants to do.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. And in that, when you listen to the recording, if you start with line 6, I'm not recognizing it when I should have, and I'm not having, because I could have had him try it a few times. Mike was like, well, if Chad does what he wants to do. They're talking about the plea deal, not anything specific to the crime or her. It's not a confession of that in any way, shape, or form.
Sure.
It could be construed as that.
But
by the
wouldn't you
jury.
cross-examine Ms. Cobb about that?
We could certainly do that, but I'm afraid that if the transcript goes back as evidence, that they're going to look at this without, especially if there are no corrections made to this.
I understand, but let me go back.
prejudicial.
Let's go back to what we just talked about a few minutes ago. My question is, do you have an objection to the transcript being portrayed to the jurors for purposes of demonstrative today?
No, as
No.
long as it doesn't come in.
This has to do with admissibility of the written transcript, correct?
Yes, I just want to
Okay.
add some specificity.
I haven't ruled on that.
No
We will
worries.
discuss that at the time.
Yep.
Okay? All right. What's your concern about today?
I don't, I just wanted to add that specificity to his objection and make sure that was noted for the record when
Fair
you're
enough.
reviewing that.
And I do, and I appreciate that. And I will say that you raise valid points as it relates to the admissibility of that transcript as typed by a court reporter being submitted to the jury. I understand that. Today, though, I want to focus on the fact that I think both sides have agreed that when Ms. Cobb testifies, the audio will be played, if I'm not mistaken, and then the state, for demonstrative purposes, will have some of those segments up on the screen. No objection to that, correct?
Objection to that.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so I think that is resolved for today. Attorney O'Brien, I want the record to be very clear about that.
I understand, Judge, but one more time,
Yes,
not to be too repetitive, but it's our position that the entire tape should be played.
fair enough. Okay. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Attorney LaPrenzi, anything else on that right now?
No, other than just technically we're trying to work that out. I need.
Okay, and we can go off the record and deal with that. But anything else for the record as soon as your technology begins?
But that's correct, Judge.
And what I will do, for purposes of the presentation to the jurors today, is this. We will explain to them that there was an audio recording, and I'm sure Attorney Loprenzi is actually going to direct, I would assume he's going to direct his witness about that, right?
Yes, Judge.
Because you're gonna lay the foundation and ask her where it came from. She's gonna say, I recorded her, right?
Right.
Okay, so when we get to that, Attorney O'Brien and Attorney Cottrell, here's what I'm thinking. He will do that. He will then ask to play that in front of the jurors. And then I can address the fact that there's an audio. Then we can discuss the fact that jurors can be instructed, that a court reporter typed it. But it's ultimately their perception, them listening to it, and there may even be in their minds a contradiction as they view the evidence today and hear it, and they are to rely on what they interpret it to be. Does that address your concerns for today?
That does.
Okay. Attorney O'Brien, does that address your concerns?
Very much so, Your Honor.
Okay, so then we have an agreement, and I guess too, perhaps that assists you in your positioning of wanting to play the audio in its entirety. Does that address your concern?
No.
Okay, you still want it played in its entirety?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and perhaps, and I'll think about it, I'm not going to require the state of Ohio to do that right now, but I may allow you to do it on cross, okay? Which then leads me to my next point. If by some chance Cindee goes over this morning, we get to Chad 1 to 3, we may have to finish up with Cindee after Chad, so we may never get to Matt Travis.
And Judge, I told Mr. O'Brien before we went on the record that I did not object to him using or doing whatever he wanted
Right.
with the transcript and the entire audio if he wanted to play
Right.
it. We're not
Yeah,
objecting.
so here's what we'll do. He'll conduct his direct examination. He'll be permitted to play the audio. He'll be permitted with that instruction, with the transcript, and then I'll consider your request. We'll take a recess after her direct, and then I'll let you know if you'll be permitted to play it in entirety, despite the fact that the entire audio is being admitted as an exhibit to the jurors. Fair enough?
Understood.
All right, very good. Anything further from the state at this time?
No, Judge.
All right,
Thank you.
Attorney O'Brien, anything else? Anything else right now?
I just don't want to.
No? All right. Attorney Cottrell, anything else on what you had to say?
No,
Okay, very good. And again, we'll address those issues that relates to your objection to the written transcript being submitted to the jurors as an exhibit. We'll go off the record and then, Jeff, how's it going?
Oh, we just need to pull up this stuff and see if it'll.
Oh, good. Okay, good. So we're there. Perfect. This morning, and we very much appreciate that. Let me give you the schedule of events today. We have a witness this morning. Most likely she will last, as I'm told by the lawyers, between direct and cross-examination, probably till lunch. We will take a mid-morning recess. We will then have testimony this afternoon. Again, we'll take a recess probably after that testimony. We have a block of time, I think, from 1 to 3, so I'll try to schedule that. But plan for you will be in the courtroom from 1 to 3. You might be excused at 3, or we may take a recess at that time and then finish up with some testimony. I think I told you at the end of the day yesterday. Today you'll probably done between 4:30 and 5. So plan on that. With that, I think that's everything I need to tell you right now. I know all of you were subject to the health screenings this morning. You all were admitted into the building. We'll try to keep this moving as efficiently as possible. Is there anything that the lawyers would like to note for the record before Attorney Loprenzi calls his next witness?
I just thought something, Judge.
Yes.
Based on your ruling about juvenile name.
Yes.
I did not mention that to the witness.
Oh, okay.
So maybe you'd want.
I'll talk to her about that also.
That's fine.
Okay, very good. All right, so you folks know obviously there's a minor child involved in this case. At some point, she may even be called to testify as a witness. We've identified her as G, as in giraffe, C, GC. Now, I know you folks heard her name yesterday, I think in opening statement, and I see some of the jurors nodding their heads up and down. They called her by her first name yesterday. Previously, we dealt with some procedural issues, and so because she is a minor, and for a variety of other issues regarding her privacy, we are going to refer to her today, and the witnesses will be instructed to do that as either the minor child, in her role as a relative to whomever that witness is, or GC. Make sense? Got it? Okay, everybody, all the jurors are nodding their heads up and down. Attorney O'Brien, anything else before we bring in the state's next witness?
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, very good. We're ready. Thank you. Attorney LaPrenzi, who do you wish to call?
We call Cindee Cobb.
All right. All right, we'll bring in Ms. Cobb. Very good. Now, Ms. Cobb, before you have a seat right in front of me, stand right here in front of me, right here. Now, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony or statement you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, very good. Now, you're going to be seated, but before you do that, those microphones are there. You got to keep your voice up so the jurors and our court reporter can hear your testimony. I've just instructed the lawyers and I gave the jurors the information. Your grandchild, who you will testify about today, you're permitted to call her the minor child, my grandchild, or GC. You are not to use her first name. Do you understand me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. You may have a seat. Attorney LaPrenzi, you may proceed.
Good morning, ma'am. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
If you would, please introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your full name and then spell your first and last name for the court reporter.
Cynthia Cobb, CYNTHIA COBB.
Can you guys hear her in the back? Yes? Okay. All right, ma'am, keep your voice up a little bit more.
Did you say Ms. Cobb?
Or
I don't know if
speak into
that's-
that microphone.
Yeah.
Thanks. See how I'm doing, Ms. Cobb? Yeah, you do that too. Thanks.
Okay. So you, very good. So say hello.
Hello?
All right. It's still not quite loud as the judge, but it's better. So if we have volume issues, you'll just have to lean into that mic a little bit.
Okay.
Okay? And the one that comes through the system is the little smaller one with the white around it. Okay?
Okay.
You said your name was Cindee Cobb. Are you married?
Yes, sir.
And who's your husband?
J. Cobb,
And do you have any children?
1.
And what's that child's name? Is it male or female?
Male.
And
Chad
what's his
Cobb.
name?
Chad Cobb.
Chad Cobb. Tell us where do you, I don't want your address, but what area do you live in? What city?
Rittman.
Okay. And how long have you lived in Rittman?
Probably 35 years.
All right. And how old is your son, Chad?
38.
So he would have been there in Rittman his whole life except for the first 3 years.
We moved there when he was in kindergarten, I guess.
Okay. And so where did you live before that?
Oklahoma.
All right. So you moved from Oklahoma to Rittman and you've been there ever since.
Yes, sir.
And did you live in the same house?
Yes.
All right, so you've been in the same place for 35 years, and basically that's where Chad and you and your husband lived until today.
Correct.
All right, except for Chad. He obviously later on moved out, right?
Yes.
Where did Chad go to high school?
Chippewa,
And what was his highest level of education?
12th grade.
And then after he graduated high school, what did he do?
He did basic training for the Marines.
All right, and did he then go into the Marines?
No, he finished basic training and then he got out.
All right. So after that, what did he do?
Jobs. He had several different ones, and then he went into the cable business for himself.
All right. So did he, when you said he had several different jobs, did some of those jobs involve the cable business?
I think he was a chimney sweep at one time, worked for a lumber company, worked for a body shop.
Okay. And so he started his own business.
Yes, sir.
Do you know about how old he was when he did that?
It was prior to GC being born, so maybe 2003, 2004,
So GC is how old now?
15.
And so it would have been at least 15 years ago.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know somebody by the name of Mike Stefanko?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how do you know Mike Stefanko? Do you know his family?
Yes, they live across the lane from us.
All right. And how long have they lived across the lane from you?
They was there before we were.
All right, so the entire 35 years you've been there, the Stefankos have been there.
Yes,
And during the years, did you converse with them?
yes,
And did they have children?
yes, there was 3.
All right, and one of them was Mike.
Yes, Mike is the middle son.
And is his first name actually Mike, or is it Chris?
I think it's Christopher Michael Stefanko.
Okay. And did he and Chad know each other?
Yes, they were best friends growing up.
All right. Did they go to high school together?
Yes,
Were they the same age or a little different, or do you know?
I believe Mike's a little younger.
A little younger. Okay. So did they hang out together?
Yes,
Were they at each other's houses?
yes,
Okay. Let's move a little bit forward now. Chad is an adult. He's graduated from high school. He's out of the Marines. At some point in time, does he get involved with an individual by the name of Ashley Biggs?
yes.
When did that happen, if you know?
– 2004.
Okay. And do you know how they met? If you don't, that's okay.
I think it might have been at a roller skating rink. I'm not positive.
And do you know if they began a relationship or were in a relationship?
They was boyfriend and girlfriend, yes.
All right. Were they ever married?
No, sir.
And from that relationship, did they have any children?
Yes, 1.
And who is that child?
GC.
How long after GC was born were Chad and Ashley together, if you know?
In 2007, Ashley turned full and complete custody over to Chad.
I'm not sure. I didn't hear all of that, so maybe if you could say that again.
In 2007, I believe it was March, Ashley turned full and complete custody of GC over to Chad. So probably a little bit prior to that, they was not in a relationship any longer.
And do you know why she did that?
She just had other interest and didn't want to be involved with Chad.
All right. And so Chad, do you know, did he take that on? Was he okay with that?
Yes, he was.
So following that relationship, did Chad end up in other relationships?
I think he dated periodically, yes.
All right. And eventually, did he meet an individual by the name of Erica Lyons?
Yes.
And Erica Lyon, do you know when he started bringing her around?
I think it might have been about the fall of 2007.
All right. So this would have been shortly, within months of him getting custody of GC.
Correct.
Okay. Ultimately, where did that relationship go? Do you know?
The relationship with
Did
Ashley.
they get married? I'm talking about Chad and Erica.
Chad and Erica. Eventually, they were together for some years before they got married.
Okay. And do you recall when it was that they got married? If not, it's okay.
Maybe around 2000. I'm not positive.
And
Or
did
wait,
you
that would
say
have been right. Yeah, that wouldn't have been right. 2010.
all right? And that's your best guess?
Yes.
Was that his first marriage?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you know if it was her first marriage?
No, it was not.
All right. Did she have any other children prior to meeting Chad?
Yes, 1.
And what was that child's? I guess, Your Honor, should we use initials for this child also?
Yes.
AL.
AL.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in regards to age, how old was he as compared to GC?
A few months older,
All right, so they're about the same age.
correct?
So in this relationship, they both brought a child, and the two children were about the same age.
Yes.
Were there any other children from their relationship?
Yes, they have 2 more together.
All right. So they each had one from prior relationships, and then they had 2 together.
Yes.
And if you could, give us their initials.
FC and KC.
All right. At some point in time, did you become aware that Ashley was in a relationship with another individual?
Yes.
What was that individual's name?
Brittany Dunson.
And how did you find that out?
I don't recall.
Okay. And had you known what Ashley was doing or where she was once she gave up custody of GC to Chad?
She's seen her very frequently. I believe the last time she's seen her was like 2008, and then she exited Grace's life for over 3 years. No phone calls, no checkups on her, no nothing.
All right. And the last time she had contact with GC, at that point in time, did you know Brittany then? Or she wasn't in the picture
yeah.
at that point?
No, I didn't know her.
Okay. So at some point in time, does Ashley then come back into GC's life?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I guess Ashley had gone to the courts to get temporary custody in October 5th, 2011. That was the first time we had heard anything from Ashley since 2008. She went to the school and collected Grace. GC. Collected her from school, and GC had no idea who Ashley was.
Okay. And so what was the response from you and the rest of your family, Chad, Erica?
We were floored. We couldn't believe that a magistrate would just hand over a child to a stranger virtually without any prior checking into anything.
There was no notification, no hearings, no anything. Is that fair?
Correct.
Who was supposed to pick up GC from school that day?
Chad.
Okay. And when she wasn't there, did he notify you? Do you recall?
Maybe later, but not right away. I believed he called Erica.
Okay. Following that, what efforts did you and your son and Erica, the family, do in order to rectify what you felt was a wrong?
I know Chad filed, I don't know the legal term for it, but he had filed paperwork to try to get custody back or revoked from the temporary order that Ashley had.
And what was the date you told us that she picked her up from school?
October 5th, 2011.
All right. So did they get lawyers?
Yes, he did.
Okay. So he went the legal route.
Yes, sir.
And through that process, were you, I guess, at least kept informed or involved at all in that process?
Yes, we was kept informed.
All right. Did you go to the hearings?
I remember being to maybe 1 or 2 because my husband and I both worked, so not able to always get off work.
And during this process, was Chad and Erica able to get visitation, or you and your husband able to get visitation with GC?
We didn't get any visitation until after Thanksgiving.
All right. Do you know why that was?
I don't recall.
And were there evaluations done by the court or the magistrate to determine what was the best interest for GC?
GC was in counseling, and that Chad had to push for her to be put into counseling to help her deal with whatever she was going through, you know, being placed with people she didn't know.
And as far as you knew, this battle over GC, was it relatively civil or was it not civil?
I believe it started out civil, and then with the issues, it was escalating.
All right. And ultimately, how would you describe the, I guess, relationship between the parties during that later part of that process?
I think things would have went better if it was just 2 parties involved instead of 4.
And what do you mean by that?
By 2 parties, I think if Chad and Ashley could have talked, and there not been Chad, Ashley, Brittany, and Erica.
And why do you think that Erica and Brittany, and based on what you're saying, if they weren't involved, things would have been a lot smoother? Why do you think that?
I just think they both kind of added fuel to the fire.
And during this process, what was your relationship with Erica?
Daughter-in-law and mother-in-law, I guess.
Well, I mean, if we took the stereotypical, you know, view of that, maybe not so good. You have to tell us. We don't know. Was it a good relationship? Average?
I'd
Really
say it
good,
was
really bad?
average.
Objection, Your Honor, form of the question.
Overruled.
Average relationship.
Okay. And as far as you knew, was Erica wanting GC back?
She stated she did.
Okay. At some point later, did you find out that she had some issues with GC?
Yes, we did.
And what were you able to find out about the issues with GC and Erica?
She was abusive towards GC. At one point, had fed her. GC had stated it was dog poop.
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Was there things that you found out from GC?
There was things I found out from GC, and there were things that Erica told me herself.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the things that Erica told you herself. First of all, did those things confirm what GC had told you?
Yes.
And what were the things that Erica told you herself in regards to the abusive nature of their relationship?
Objection, Your Honor, relevancy.
Overruled.
You can answer.
I can answer. She had placed some kind of fecal material in yogurt and had Grace eat it.
And when you say fecal material, are you talking about human or otherwise?
I thought it was dog poop. Erica told me it was otherwise, but something equally disgusting.
All right. So she admitted to you that she did that and that GC believed it to be dog poop.
Yes, sir.
When did you learn of these things?
After Grace was in counseling.
Okay. At some point in time, do you know if there was a permanent award of custody?
I do not.
Okay. So this court battle continues on from October 5th until when?
Till June 21st, 2012,
And that was when what?
when Ashley was killed.
All right. So let's move forward to that. On June 20th, 2012, had you had any conversations with Erica or Chad? if you remember?
I had one earlier in the week with Chad. They were getting ready to take the family to Disney World in Florida.
All right, and how long were they going to go for? If you know.
I don't recall, maybe 5 days.
All right, and who, when you say the family, it would have been Eric and Chad?
Yes, and the 3 kids.
3. So it had been GC, AL, and
FC, 4 kids, and KC.
okay. So they had already had their second child at that point. Is that,
Yes,
and how old was that second child that they had together?
he was born in April, so he would have been like 2 months.
All right, very young.
Yes,
And that was Casey?
yes.
Okay. So that day, you don't recall speaking to them?
I did not speak to either one of them during the day, no.
So when is the first time you knew something was wrong?
Chad had called in the middle of the night, just said things weren't good, didn't have good phone connection. He did not go into any detail, just said things were not good, but I did not get a handle on what was going on.
All right. And when you say in the middle of the night, what do you mean?
I believe it was after midnight.
Okay. So he didn't ask you for anything? He didn't tell you anything other than things aren't good?
Things aren't good.
Did you see him that night?
No, sir.
Did you see Erica that night?
No, sir.
When was the last time you saw Chad?
I believe it was either Sunday or Monday of that week.
Okay, and that would have been which days numerically?
Like maybe the 17th.
All right, so about 3 days prior to the 20th?
Correct.
And you had not seen, how about Erica? Had you seen her? Would that have been the last time you saw her, or was that even longer?
No, it probably would have been about the same time.
All right. So there's no question you didn't see Chad that night?
No, sir.
So during that period of time, the next day then, after he calls, do you find out other information?
I was at work. At some point in time, I think someone might have got a hold of me to say that he had been arrested.
I'm sorry. Repeat the question?
I asked her, was there some time, or when's the next time you heard anything, I guess, about the situation?
Right, fair enough. Okay, answer that question directly, ma'am. He asked you when.
It would have been that day, I don't know what time.
So the 21st?
Yes.
And so what did you become aware of that was going on with your son?
And I don't recall who, because everybody was at my mom's house and just said that he had been arrested.
All right. When you say everybody, who are you talking about?
Everybody meaning my mother was there, her husband, Erica, and the kids, and Chad.
And Chad?
Was on my mom's property, yes.
Okay, that was before he was arrested.
They got picked up on my mom's property.
Right. And I guess I'm not asking my question very artfully.
Okay.
You found out he was arrested. And I guess maybe I misunderstood. Were you saying he was arrested on your mom's property?
That is my understanding,
Oh,
yes.
okay. So you found out that he had been arrested, though?
Yes.
All right. And then once he was arrested, were you kind of, it's your son There was a legal process. Was he ultimately charged?
Yeah, he was charged.
And eventually he was convicted of Ashley's death. Is that fair?
Correct.
And your son is currently where?
Richland Correctional Institute.
And he has a sentence of what?
Life.
And it's actually life without parole. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a trial in that case?
No, he took a plea deal.
I'm sorry?
No, he took a plea deal.
All right. And the plea deal was what?
He wanted the children home, and so he took a plea
Objection,
deal.
Your Honor, non-responsive.
Sustained. It's stricken.
Was he charged with a capital offense?
Yes,
He was facing the death penalty, wasn't he?
correct.
And so as part of his plea, that was taken off the table. Is that fair?
Yes,
Okay. So he pled no potential for a death penalty, and he ended up getting sentenced to life without parole,
correct,
which means he will never get out.
correct.
During that process, was there some conversation regarding him taking that plea deal?
Yes,
Were you involved in any of those conversations?
yes.
And what was the issue regarding him taking a plea deal?
We were,
Once again, Judge, objection.
Can you be more specific with your question, please?
Your son decided to plead to every charge against him. Was that fair?
yes,
And he chose not to go to trial.
correct,
Yes? You have to answer out loud.
correct.
Do you know, and were you part of the conversations regarding why he did that without taking it to trial?
We were told,
Objection.
Well,
Sustained.
who told you what?
Beth Judge, who was the custody attorney, and Malarsic, which was the criminal attorney. We were told,
What? Don't tell us what you were told. The judge just said you can't talk about what they said. Okay.
I was told,
What? No.
Listen to his question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Attorney LaPrenzie.
Thank you. We got to be very cautious. I don't want you to answer a question with "I was told," okay? Because
Okay.
that would be hearsay. Okay.
okay. The children would be put up for adoption.
Don't say anything.
Don't.
Let's let Attorney LaPrenzie ask the question. That statement is stricken. Ms. Cobb, wait for a question to be posed. If there's an objection, wait for me to rule. If I say overruled, you can answer. If I say sustained, you cannot. Got it? You understand that?
Yes,
Okay, very good. Attorney LaPrenzie, you may proceed.
Thank you. So, Mrs. Cobb, what concerns were there about the children that you had?
where they would be housed.
All right. And why was that a concern if Erica was still involved? And Ashley would have been involved at that point, but if Erica was still around.
At this point, all the children were in foster care. Did not want to see them get adopted out.
All right. And so what did you feel was the way to not get them adopted out?
To get them back home.
And were you aware that the investigation into Ashley's death also included Erica as a suspect?
Yes,
And were you aware that there were requests made for cooperation from your son?
Yes.
What did you believe was going to happen if your son testified and cooperated against Erica?
Objection.
Overruled. She can answer if she knows.
Can you repeat the question?
What was your concern if your son Chad cooperated with the state of Ohio and testified against Erica?
Again, I mean, kids are always an issue.
All right. During the time that this criminal process was going on, do you remember, I think you said Chad was arrested on the 21st of June. Do you know when he ultimately was pled guilty and was sentenced?
I believe in February 2012, February or March.
Of 12 or 13? It actually-
13, I think it'd be 13.
Okay. During the pendency of his case, did you still have communications with Erica?
Yes,
And did those communications involve discussions regarding what happened the night that Ashley died?
occasionally.
All right. And what types of things was she telling you about that?
They were all together, and that she had placed the call to arrange for the pizza and the meeting place.
For the pizza and
The meeting place,
the meeting place. When you heard that, what was your reaction?
I get floored.
Did she have any other conversation or discussions with you at that point in time before Chad was pled and sentenced? Do you recall any other conversations? If not, that's okay.
Yeah.
So let's move ahead. Chad gets sentenced. He's sent off to prison. And when he goes to prison, do you and your husband and the children start visiting Chad?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did that happen regularly?
Yes, sir.
And do you know whether Erica was visiting or not?
She went with me one time to see him up when he was at Conneaut. I don't believe she went other times.
At some point in time, was there issues with who was going to go, of the children, who was going to go with you to see Chad?
Yes.
And how did those issues, I guess, come into play?
Chad, of course, would always like to see Faith, KC, and FC. And AL would always go also, but sometimes, you'd only take 2 of the children. Sometimes she would send one over the other if one was ready or one wasn't.
And that, who was that an issue with?
Sometimes Chad.
Okay. Now, you indicated that Chad had his own business, cable business.
Correct.
And with that cable business, did he have equipment?
Yes.
Tools?
Yes.
And did those tools become issues at a time?
Yes, during the divorce.
All right. So following his conviction and being sent to prison, they ended up getting divorced.
Yes, Chad sought divorce in 2014, I believe.
And during that time, and I'm not going to ask you why he chose to divorce her, but was there something that was going on in Erica's life that seemed apparent to be one of the factors involved in the divorce?
Yes,
What was that?
she had gotten involved with Mike Stefanko and had a child with him.
And when was that child born? If you know.
2013,
Do you know what month?
October, I believe.
And you had indicated that Chad had pled sometime when?
In February or March.
So at some point in time, when Chad was pled guilty and was sentenced, she was already pregnant, if the math adds up?
Correct.
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Did Chad know that? As far as you know, did Chad know that at the time?
I'm not sure if he was aware at the time of sentencing or not.
And when did you become aware that she was pregnant with Mike's baby?
It was in the spring. I had asked, and she did not answer, just said that she would discuss it with Chad before discussing with anyone else.
And was that whether she was pregnant or who the father was?
Definitely whether she was pregnant. The father, she had told me she wasn't sure who it was.
All right. So at some point in time, after Chad's been off to prison, he's gotten divorced. Was he still trying to fight his case?
Yeah, he had an appeal.
So he appealed the plea and sentence.
Yes.
And ultimately, was that successful?
No, sir.
During that period of time, though, were you still involved with the children and Erica?
Yes, sir.
And that was even in spite of the fact that she was now with Mike.
Correct.
Where did they live together?
Mike and Erica?
Yes.
Yes, he moved in shortly after Chad was arrested.
And what was the address that Chad lived at?
15007 Mount Eaton Road, Rittman.
And what county is that in?
It's in Wayne.
Wayne County?
Mm-hmm.
And so when did Chad move into that house?
I'm not exactly sure.
Was it before Erica or after he met Erica?
After he met Erica.
So they moved in together and that was their marital home?
Yes.
Did he work on that house?
Yes.
Renovated it?
Yes.
And you said that how long after he was arrested or went to prison did Mike move in?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
I can answer.
Yes.
I believe it was in a month or two.
All right. As Chad's mother, to this day, are you hoping he gets out someday?
Yes, sir.
And at some point in time, did you feel that there were other people responsible for him being where he is?
Yes, sir.
And why did you feel that way?
Erica disliked Ashley. I don't know exactly what the reason was. But whenever Ashley come back into the picture, she definitely did not like that.
Who did not like that?
Erica didn't.
And do you know why, if Erica was being abusive to Grace, why would she care that Ashley came back into GC's life?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Do you know?
I point blank asked Erica at one time,
Well, first of all, do you know?
no.
You don't know? Did Erica tell you why?
No, the one time I had asked why she didn't like him, she didn't answer.
All right. But you felt that somehow Erica was responsible.
Yes,
Did you believe Erica was completely responsible for him being there or partially responsible?
partially it took two.
It took two. So you accept the fact that your son is at least partly, if not mostly, responsible for Ashley's death. Is that fair?
Correct?
And you said it takes two. How did you know it took two?
I mean, she admitted that she made the phone call.
All right. So at some point in time, you made a recording.
Yes, sir.
Who was there when you made that recording?
Just Erica and I
Where was the recording made?
in our barn.
Your barn?
Yes, sir.
And when you say barn, is it like an animal barn? What kind of barn is it?
It is a renovated barn. It's heated. Our Harleys are housed in there. There's a bar in there.
A bar?
Yes, sir.
What prompted you to record Erica?
Off and on, through the years, we would have issues. If she got upset about something, she would withhold the kids from us. It would be, until we can sit down and talk, the kids aren't going to be able to come over. This happened several times. We had just come back from vacation, and she wanted to meet with us, with me, to talk. And it was during this time where Chad was wanting the divorce, the tools situation, and I decided I was just going to record. Tired of always being called on the mat and always having the kids withheld from us.
What was the last thing you said? Call them to the mat, and then I didn't hear what you said.
And having the kids withheld from us.
Withheld from them. Okay. At times, did Erica come to you, this is prior to the recording, to intercede between her and Chad?
Yes,
And what would the reason would she want you to intercede?
Chad didn't really have any communication with her, and she was wanting to talk to Chad about some issues.
And had they talked over the phone?
Occasionally, he hadn't talked to her for a while, I don't think. He pretty much stopped communication.
All right. And the day that she came over, was there part of the conversation about the tools?
Yes,
And what was that in relation to?
I believe what he would be getting, they would be housed at our house. She was upset because he felt Chad, was giving her ultimatums about the tools and stuff being his way, or he would be talking about her involvement with Ashley.
So she came to you to intercede about that.
About that, and then, like I said, I believe he was still able to see the kids at that point.
All right. So according to this conversation you had with Erica, if I understand it right, she believed that he was holding her involvement over her head in order to get things done, like see the kids or get his tools back.
Correct.
And I say get his tools back. They were supposed to go to you and your husband, correct?
Right.
What was her leverage over him?
The kids.
So if he turns her in, what happens to the kids?
If he turns her in, what happens to the kids?
I thought you said earlier they would be adopted out.
Correct. They would all be adopted out, is what that Erica's reference to told us, that they would all go up for adoption and be adopted out.
And so you were in the middle of all that.
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to listen to that recording that the state provided to you? Actually, you provided to us first, and then we had you listen to it again. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right. And the recording we played for you, did that accurately represent the conversation you had with Erica on, I believe, was it March 2nd, 2014?
Yes, sir.
And how, if you know, about how long was that conversation?
Maybe roughly a couple of hours.
All right, if I told you it was about 3 hours and 1 minute, the recording was about 3 hours, well, just under 3 hours of the conversation. Is that fair?
Fair.
And during that conversation, some of it was just unrelated small talk.
Correct.
I want to play portions of that tape for you, and I may have some questions for you during that, but I want you to tell me if each one of these portions is an accurate record of what she and you said during that conversation, okay?
Okay.
Your Honor, if I could have a moment, it might just take me a second here, because I think our screen went.
Sure, you're requesting to formally play that, correct?
I'm sorry, yes, Judge, we have marked this as State's Exhibit Number 4 for identification purposes, which would be purported to be the recorded conversation, audio conversation between Cindee Cobb and Erica Stefanko on March 2nd, 2014. And I should have asked you, Ms. Cobb, before I do that, at that time, do you know she was married to Mike?
I don't know.
Okay. Ultimately, though, she did get married to Mike, correct?
Yes.
All right, Attorney O'Brien, any objection to playing the audio at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Basis?
Your Honor, I believe that the recording itself may be inaccurate.
Okay, fair enough. The audio recording?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Attorney LaPrenzi, your response?
I guess I have no response, since this is the first time I've heard that there is any question about the authenticity or the accuracy of the recording. I guess I can ask some follow-up questions if the court would like.
Certainly.
When you made that recording, what was it recorded on?
A little recorder.
Okay. And was it a kind of a cassette, or was it a electronic, digital?
I believe it's digital.
Okay, so it's not like a cassette tape.
No.
And so you took that digital recording, what did you do with it?
I put it in our gun safe.
And then ultimately, how long did it stay in that gun safe, from 2014 until when?
I believe 2018.
And what did you do in 2018 with that recording?
I turned it over to Detective Hitchings.
And why did you wait 4 years to turn that over to Detective Hitchings?
When I recorded it, I did not listen to it. We had a lot going on. We had just come home from vacation. Our barn was flooded. Put it away. Listen to it when we change safes, come across it and listen to it. Also, I feel it's a piece of the puzzle. And there's a lot of pieces to this case.
And since you brought that up, is it fair that you gave that to the police in order to help what you believe would be help for your son?
Correct.
All right. And you met with myself and Detective Hitchings here, correct?
Yes.
And during that meeting, what were you told about us doing anything on behalf of your son?
There is nothing for Chad to gain by me turning that in.
And did we ask you if you still wanted to do that?
Yes, you did.
And what was your answer?
Yes, I do.
So from the time that you recorded it in March of 2014 until the time you turned it in, you listened to it one time?
Right, whenever I came back across it.
And at any time, did you alter that, change it, or give it to anyone else to alter or change?
No, sir.
Who has access to that safe?
My husband and I.
Do either of you have any, high levels of, technical expertise in order to alter something like that?
No, sir.
Your Honor, we would offer that up too, also to defense counsel if they want to have somebody take a look at it and see if it's been altered.
Well, there's no need for that, Attorney LaPrenzi. That statement is stricken. Attorney O'Brien, does that resolve your objection?
It does, Your Honor. The objection still stands, though.
Okay.
Nevertheless, Your Honor, would the court issue at this point some form of a limiting instruction as to the tape versus any transcript?
I want to understand your objection, Attorney O'Brien. Does it relate to the audio, the issue that we discussed earlier versus the transcript? Is this the basis of your objection? I see Attorney Cottrell nodding her head up and down. Is that what you're referring to?
That's part of it, Your Honor, yes.
Okay. When you say that's part of it, I want to have a total understanding as to what your objection is based on.
The tape, Your Honor?
Versus the transcript?
Yes, Your Honor. And the
Okay.
tape being admitted, Your Honor, this tape has been someplace in a safe for up to 4 years. And
Okay. Well, then that's different than, Attorney LaPrenzi, that's different than the issues that we addressed and discussed earlier. My understanding was we were going to have the instruction regarding the transcript. So at this particular time, what I'll do is I'll have my staff come out. The lawyers and I are going to discuss an issue at this particular time. What we'll do is we'll have Ms. Kroll and Mr. Wellemeyer assist you. Remember, over this break, and it's 10:25, you're not permitted to discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. You're not permitted to do any independent research. No one is permitted to have any contact with you, and I'll be with you shortly. Then, thank you very much.
All rise.
Stand up.
Thanks, Desiree. Thanks, everyone. You may be seated. Thank you. Here's what I'll do right now. Ms. Cobb, I'm going to have you step out into the foyer. We'll make sure that door is shut. Just as a reminder, just real quick, Mrs. Cobb, you're not permitted to discuss your testimony with anyone during this break, okay? Thank you very much. I appreciate your cooperation. Thank you. Okay. And I think we have the doors closed. Okay. Just so that I understand the basis of this objection, I thought we discussed this issue previously. I thought it was the issue of playing the audio recording versus presenting the transcript. So let's talk about it a little bit more. Attorney Laprenzi, do you want something you want to note right now, or do you want me to address it first with Attorney O'Brien?
No, I think you address it with Attorney O'Brien, because I'm not sure I understand.
Okay. And I know that you indicated just a few minutes ago in front of the jury that it was the first time that you had heard that. So Attorney O'Brien, what's the basis of your objection at this time?
Your Honor, up to this point, I wasn't sure where that tape had been and where it had been for how long, Your Honor. I knew of its existence, but I didn't know the circumstances of it being still with Miss Cobb, Mrs. Cobb, until now.
Okay. So the basis of your objection?
Judge, and we've had a chance to listen to it, we've had a chance to look at the transcript, Your Honor, but we haven't had a chance to have it analyzed. Didn't ask for it to be analyzed, I agree. And we're just real worried about its authenticity, Your Honor.
Attorney Laprenzi or Attorney Easter?
I guess, Judge, we have no response to that. I mean, I'm not sure how to respond to that because I don't know what the actual objection is. I would suggest that they can cross-examine as to the storage and the ability for that to have been damaged or altered, but that would be weight of evidence issues, not admissibility issues, and we believe that it would be admissible, and we would ask that it be allowed to play it.
And then that objection is separate and apart to what we discussed earlier, and I know that you agreed earlier about the cautionary instruction between playing of the audio and the transcript, correct? The written transcript.
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. All right. Is there anything Attorney Cottrell wants to put on the record regarding this objection, or is that it?
No, that is it, Your Honor. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right, why don't we just take a few minutes, and I'll be back with you shortly. Thank you.